Hi, my name is Dan Greenwood. I work at the Center for Learning and Teaching, and I have to admit candidly, I'm not a ODU top teacher because I don't teach at ODU. But what I did do at my previous college is I was adjunct instructor in the engineering department for 7 years. And instead of working at CLT, I worked at TLC there. So I always, if you ever hear me say TLC, that's the reason. Anyway, so I wanted to just tell you a little bit about project-based learning and some of the examples of how I've used it. Basically, if you don't know what project-based learning is, it's taking your course content and you're finding a real-world application for it, which 95 or 100% of your classes have that. But instead of just working on the content, you're assigning students to work on a specific project where they're applying what you're teaching in class. And one of the key things about project-based learning is they have some deliverable at the end. It could be they actually built something. My students would build like an audio amplifier. That was one of the projects that they would do. It could be they do a research report, or it could be they start their own mock company. So you kind of apply it to whatever makes sense for your specific course. Some of the main characteristics of project-based learning is it's student-centered learning. They take the ownership of the project themselves. Really, you as the faculty, you just guide them. You say, this is what you're going to work on. They'll get together in a team. Inside their team, they'll have to decide what the role is for each person. They'll have to track their own milestones. They'll have to actually deal with it when things don't go the way they're expecting. And you're really just there to kind of give them guidance, answer questions. And this works really well with what Michelle was mentioning and talking about with flipped classrooms. Because what you could do is try and flip your classroom so that in your face-to-face, it's giving time for the project teams to work together. And that way, they don't have to fight with their schedules quite as much. So there's another benefit of trying to use a flipped classroom. As I mentioned, you're trying to get them to actually work on solving real-world problems. And you basically kind of look at it and see what's the type of problem that they might want to solve based off of what the courses that you're teaching. And one other key thing with project-based learning is it really emphasizes 21st century skills. And I'll talk a little about what those are next. So here's what people consider the 21st century skills, and you'll see that they match project-based learning really well. It's critical thinking and problem solving, application of knowledge. Well, that's the whole point of the project-based learning is they're taking what you're teaching them and they're applying it to some real-world scenario. They're working in teams, so they have to collaborate. That also helps them with their communication skills. Technology skills ranges on what the project is. It could be technologies, actually they're using certain pieces of equipment, oscilloscopes or whatever in my case, or they're using different types of web-based technologies. As I mentioned, it's student-centered learning, and so it's very self-direction, and they have to be able to deal with when things don't happen. What if they were going to do an interview with a person and they cancel? How do they get their product out at the end of the day if someone cancels on them? Or what if they ordered a part and it doesn't come in? Or what if someone's not doing their share of the load? So as a team, they have to resolve those kind of issues. And project management and leadership are the other big ones that kind of project-based learning allows you to emphasize. They can work with among themselves, apply who is the specific team leader, and pick up skills about how do you actually track a project. I have these milestones. I need to have this done by this date. And after that, we have this schedule, this deliverable. Because one of the things that I like about project-based learning and I've tried to leverage is it teaches them really what it's going to be like when they work out in industry. And it allows them, and one of the things that students don't usually like to be, in general, is working in groups, but they get experience with it because really, you never really work by yourself. I worked at AT&T for 12 years or so. I never did a project by myself. There was a team of testers, technical writers, everyone else was in the picture. So this allows them to get some exposure with how you deal with different personalities, how you deal with someone who's not carrying their load. And all this is also allowing them to apply whatever is the content that you're teaching to actually building something. There was a survey done by the Association of American Colleges and Universities, and they asked employers what are the top 10 things they look for. And again, this matches with the 21st century skills, and it actually, project-based learning can help you achieve your students getting some of these experiences when they actually go out to look for a job. work well in teams. Like I was saying, you almost never work in a silo when you're actually out in industry. You're always got to interface with other people. Applying technology and science to real world settings. Communications comes out again. That was a key one for them. Ability to analyze complex problems, come up with solutions. So being innovative in that case. And create and innovate problem solutions and apply knowledge and skills. I mean, these are all things that if you can find a good project and get your students actually working on it, they'll take the knowledge that you're teaching them and what the course material is, and they'll be able to build these type of skills and experiences, and that's what the employers are looking for. So it's going to help them when they actually go to try and get a job. And this is one thing that I would always kind of bring up to my class and say, when you go out to look for a job, you may not like working on this project with these other people, but you're going to be picking up these skills, and you'll have something you can actually show and demonstrate to a possible employer. I picked a few examples, and this first one actually is it's a group that I actually worked with up at the City University in New York, and this was an NSF grant that they had, and they've gotten it extended several times. The purpose behind the grant was to promote this idea of virtual enterprise, and they did it with New York City high schools, grade schools, and colleges, other universities in Ohio. I was in New Jersey. We worked with them, and they provide a lot of support. The idea is students come up with their own company, and they actually have a market where if I was doing a telecom company, I could link my market of my company to what's really happening with AT&T, so I actually would see the market going up and down based on that. They have tons of resources in the form of templates, and also tools like a website building tool, HR resources. You can have your students get actually mock jobs, and they earn a mock salary to get that money in their checking account, and they can go buy products that have been developed by other schools or other students and have it come out of their checking account. It's pretty a large thing. Now, I have to admit, my focus was more the product development, and that's really where I worked with them in terms of my coursework. Because again, I would have them build an audio amplifier. So I would say, okay, come up with the specs for your amplifier, come up with the design, build it, come up with a test plan, how you're going to actually verify it works, and then write your test results and have a document that summarizes your test results. So these guys were really great because they actually let you use whatever part, and they gave you a lot of support on how to implement project-based learning. Another great resource is the Bucks Institute of Education. They're probably one of the premier organizations in terms of project-based learning. And if you go to their project search database, you'll find a bunch of examples. And again, you kind of match the project to whatever it is that you're teaching. In this case, the idea is for the students to basically do an analysis. The government has this program where they'll give you X amount of dollars to purchase a new car if you trade in your old one. So what do? They ask the students, okay, do your analysis, come up where you can come up with a recommendation or develop a tool that'll say that here's what my car is worth, here's what the value is I'm going to get back from them, here's what the typical value is of the new type of car I'm buying. Is it a good choice or not? So basically the students can come up with actually something that people can use and they can work with. So that was an example from Bucks. This is another one from Bucks where basically they're doing an environmental study about what's the role of microorganisms in terms of causing disease. So in this case, the deliverable is going to be a report. And they could customize that report for their particular area. So again, it's like they have to do the research, they have to contact the companies that may be involved, that they have to get information from, work together as a team, and then their product is going to be a summary report at the tail end. So I said that project-based learning is excellent, it's fun. I think it's a real benefit, but there are some challenges to it. First thing is, how do you come up with a project that really matches what you're teaching in your course? Some of it is a little easier to do. For me, it was obvious. My background was designing and building products, so I took that and applied it to the engineering courses that I I was teaching it. Other examples is you may be teaching a business course, and one of the things is that you come up with a mock kind of tourism site, website, or company. But you have to think about it. What are you teaching, and then what definitive deliverable can they come up with? Like I said, it could be something they build, it could be a document, it could be a report, it could be a website, but the big push is to have them have something that they can actually point to and say that I worked on this and I solved this problem. So coming up with the project ideas can be challenging. Another thing is trying to motivate your students. Like I said, a lot of students don't like working in teams, and so you have to really come up with some way to get them engaged and involved. And I have a couple of suggestions on how you can address that. Probably the one for all of us that's a big deal is it does take a lot of time, especially the first time you're doing it. You have to come up with the idea. You may have to come up with a whole new plan for your course. Do you fit it into your grading scheme? How much is it worth? What materials do you need to provide to the class? So it can be a bit intimidating when you're trying to do this. So I'll kind of give you my approach and see in a second, so you can kind of see if it might be applicable. And then Anthony is, where do you go to get help? And luckily, I'll give you some resources, but there's plenty of online resources about project-based learning that you can find. And CLT is available to be of assistance as well. So if I was going to get started, here's how I would do it. Coming up with your project ideas, one thing is just to kind of brainstorm a little bit. And you can usually work with your colleagues, either your peers that are here at the university that teach similar courses. They may have connections with people out in industry that you can contact to get ideas. Probably the most successful kind of project-based learning is when, again, you can tie it to something that's really a real-world product that is being delivered. The other thing is, if you really don't know how you want to get started, and this probably applies a little bit more to like a 200, 300 level or higher course, is get the students involved. Say that, hey, this is what what we're covering in this course. I want to do something where you guys actually are going to work together in teams and build something or come up with some documentation. And so what you can do is say, you guys brainstorm about it. What do you want to do? And they can bring in ideas that they have from either family, or if they had a part-time job and what they did in their part-time job, some of that gets covered in the course material, well, then they may have ideas that way. So another way to come up with some ideas is actually just to ask the students. If you know people in industry or in the community, a lot of times they're very eager to participate and help you with either coming up with ideas. Or in my case, I would actually bring in some people when my students were doing a presentation, like giving their final report on their amplifier or whatever they were building. And I'd have someone that people I used to work with would come in and they would critique them. And get them and say, well, did you consider this? Or you reviewed your test results. Well, what about this case? What if someone does this to your amplifier? What will happen? And it allows the students to kind of see, well, this is what's going to happen when they're actually working. They're going to have someone that they're building something for, or they're doing something for, whether it's their boss or whether it's an external client that they're working with. Someone's going to be critiquing them and giving them feedback on it. So it's an opportunity, if you can find a resource, to come in and just give them real-world feedback on this is how you did, this is where you could have done something better. Some projects can be tied to communities. So the Bucks Institute website has a couple of examples that are really good. One had to do with essentially a local city was going to do a redesign of a playground. And so they kind of tied up with one of the courses at the local community college. And they actually would get the students involved in coming up with the pros and cons and different design examples. So it was a good real-world example. Saved the community park system a little bit of money because they were getting outsourcing and getting students to do the work, and the students were actually making connections and getting real-world feedback. As far as what to deal with about the amount of time, I started incrementally. So the first time I did a project with one of my courses, I started pretty small. It was basically build the audio amplifier. And I had them go through and say, well, this is what you're going to build. Here's your specs. Next semester, I said, okay, well, now I want you to write the specs. I'm going to say that basically it has to, this is the performance I want out of your amplifier. You write what the specs need to be, and then from that, create your design. And then the next thing from that was, okay, well now I want you to write a test report. How are you going to test this thing? And how are you going to collect your results on it? And then full-fledged all the way to the very end, well, here's your presentation on your performance of the amplifier you did. So don't feel like you have to get a huge project done the very first time. You can kind of build it incrementally. And if you have courses where you have the same student kind of cohort from class 1 to class 2, sometimes you can have the project kind of span 2 different courses as well. As far as getting students motivated, one thing that I found that helped a lot, and I actually got students that still keep in touch with me now that I'm down here, where if you're trying to convince them that there's a reason why I'm asking them to write documentation and I'm asking them to do presentations, is ask them to do a job search in that particular area. And they're going to see what employers are looking for. If I want to get a job working for company X, they've got a job posting, here's what they're looking for. And 9 times out of 10, they're going to see stuff there that isn't just book knowledge. They're going to see stuff that says, okay, experience managing small projects, or ability to work in diverse teams that are global. It's so if you actually have them search, they've got 2 or 3 years before they're going to graduate, they actually will start thinking about the things that people are looking for. And also, because it is a collaboration, there's a lot of things that you can use, tools that you can use that are free. Prezi, ODU students and faculty have access to Google Apps and WordPress. So if you want them to collaborate, there's plenty of tools that are out there that they can easily pick up or that they can use kind of to work on their teams outside. I just had a few references here. I think all these are going to be available online for you guys. So Bucks Institute is one. CLT, like I said, we do workshops on project-based learning. We do consultations. So if you want to contact us, we'll be happy to reach out with you. We can do the project-based learning for a whole department, or we offer it sometimes as an open one. The one thing I was just going to show you lastly that is also part of the packet that you can download and use is a while back I kind of came up with a template of a bunch of different worksheets for doing brainstorming. And I kind of came up with a little guide trying to be accessible, coming up with a color scheme and shape scheme. But I came up with an instruction sheet that basically says, well, these are how you could use these different types of brainstorming templates, and then I kind of gave you the templates you can work from. So these are just to give you some examples of tools that you can use either with your class or with among you and your peers to come up with project ideas. But that's basically it.
All right, you can take one question while I transition to the next speaker. Thank you, Dan.
Sure. Oh, yeah.
For project-based for younger students, do they have to be long-term? Could it be like during a class period? Or
You could do. I mean,
to kind of build up to.
Yeah, that's a great point. You could build it. It's something that actually happens within one class session. I think for me the big thing is they have something that they can point to or that they can hold that they actually develop. So as opposed to sometimes problem-based learning is like you give them a problem and they solve the project. It's geared a little bit more like there's something that they can show, something that they can either put in their e-portfolio, something they can show a potential employer, something that they can take home and show their mom and their dad. So scale it based off of that, or you may take it and, like I said, the flipped classroom kind of works great with project-based learning because you say, well, this is what you're going to be working on with your teams next week. So you get all your reading out of the way, do the learning checks like Michelle was saying, and then dedicate some class time to it. So you could do something within the span of